you add up all those numbers who might be drinking that polluted water, these numbers would easily reach more than 1 billion, if not 2 billion. Still, like 40% people in this planet don't have access to clean water and sanitation. I am Abhijit Mukherjee. I teach groundwater pollution and groundwater quantification at the IIT Kharagpur, Indian Institute of Technology Kharagpur. I am a professor here at the Department of Geology and Geophysics, as well as at the School of Environmental Science and Engineering. So I have been working in this profession for almost last 20 years now. I do help the governments in more in a mentoring role or advisory role to help them out formulate policies for the supply of clean drinking water to the people of India.
Hi, I'm Waters of Kolkata and I'm a founding member of the Agility Initiative.
Hi, I'm Ayaan and I've worked for the Agility Initiative and managed some projects of their own. Given our philanthropic nature, we have been exposed to a lot of ills affecting our society and thus have been very interested in actively researching the effect of water pollution on Kolkata's residents. And I'm sad to say and alarmed to say that
the pollution is to such an extent that it has been termed
the largest mass poisoning
in human history.
He's right. The numbers go to about north of 50 million people.
The most conservative estimate says that about 50 million people are exposed. My thought would be it is more like 80 to 100 million people in West Bengal and Bangladesh.
Which is a huge number to take in consideration for a single environmental event.
So for example, if you look at just the north of Kolkata, a place called Nadia, southern Nadia, Kalyani and those places, the groundwater is polluted by arsenic, but it's also polluted by naphthalene.
Look, if I've said it once, I'll say it again. There's no way around it. The rivers in our country are polluted. And if you want to look at a main culprit for something like that, you'll obviously have to point fingers towards the big industries and their sewerage.
Much of this industrial sewerage, they would have their waste product dumped into certain containment system in our country, which most of the times the containment fail. It can be just a waste repository, or it can be like a just open waste dump, and from that containment they would leak, if not just untreated, and eventually they would try to flow to the nearest river, nearest pond, beach, or whatever. So on the way, part of it would seep in the subsurface to the groundwater, and also when it falls on the river water itself gets polluted, as well as some of them recirculates back to the groundwater.
And Kolkata's location along the path of Ganga is especially detrimental to amount of water pollution it faces. You see, Ganga, when it originates from the Himalayas, it's this pure, safe to drink water, and then it flows to all of North India's industrial centers. And you see the banks of Ganga, they are the perfect places for these industries, these chemical plants, these distilleries to drop their waste in, to put their waste in. And that accumulative waste, when it enters the banks surrounding Kolkata, because Kolkata is the last stop before the Ganga enters the Bay of Bengal, it actively harms the residents, the water they consume.
See, but this is only industrial waste.
Yeah.
There's also geogenic pollutants like arsenic,
Yeah.
which flow down from the Himalayas down to Kolkata.
Yeah.
While you're on the topic of geogenic waste, this problem of geogenic pollution is not one to be taken lightly.
For example, like arsenic
Can lead from skin diseases to
death,
death. While fluoride pollution can cause death through decay,
bone decay, skeletal disorders,
skeletal disorders.
and so on. The human source pollutants, they are actually more toxic in a sense that they are not natural. It can cause a number of disorders in our body. And what we are slowly waking up to, that many of the times, many of the health disorders, that many of these are actually caused by environmental pollution that includes water and air. So the air that we breathe and the water that we're drinking. There are areas, I am aware of studies in the US where they are talking, these are the cancer corridors. Like people in those areas, many of the people to have cancer. That cancer is actually being caused by some radioactive elements that are released in groundwater from some industrial sources. Similarly, we did a recent study in Assam and Bihar, where we kind of understood and kind of mathematically proved that much of the gallbladder cancer that are reported in the Gangetic Basin, which is much higher in number than what the statistics should be, are actually caused by drinking arsenic polluted water.
This contaminated water is a breeding ground for waterborne diseases, dangerous waterborne diseases like cholera, typhoid, and even like diarrhea. And like it especially affects the people living next to it, living next to the banks, but also people who practice religious rituals in them. And of course, people who like directly consume them. But even if you don't live next to the river, even if you don't do religious rituals in them, you're still not safe because some way or the other, these pollutants find your way into the food chain. And like for example, fishes are immune to this.
Fish is a very important part of the marine diet.
Yeah,
Just like any other creature, they absorb harmful substances such as heavy metals, organic pollutants, and pesticides present in the water, and now act as carriers of this very pollution. And we unknowingly or knowingly take in these harmful chemicals too when we eat them. The pollutants like heavy metals can disrupt our nervous system, while persistent organic pollutants have been linked to reproductive disorders. Now, all of this presents a grave crisis to humankind itself and even cancers.
However, much of this river water still do have a lot of human source pollutions. So there are all these organic pollutants that might be and would be present in the river water because of direct discharge from the industrial sources. And there are very limited technologies that are available even today in the world which can treat these pollutants, and treatment of those pollutants are still not in the picture because people don't even know that they exist. So at this moment I can say that yes, river water are polluted by organic pollutants, but what are the other better choices? Choices are of course drinking water, like groundwater source drinking water, but then there is arsenic or fluoride or uranium. Now uranium or arsenic or fluoride are treatable. They can be treated by some conventional and some emerging technologies, and there are plenty of technologies, thousands of technologies. Problem lies in the fact that once these treatment facilities are done, they may or may not be maintained, and that's why they are failing. So one of the reasons that people are still drinking polluted groundwater in places where they still have community water supply is because of the reason that it's not that the technology does not exist, but they are not implemented properly or maintained properly.
it's a chilling thought, isn't it?
Every time we sit down, we're essentially playing a game of chance with our own health. We never really know what's in the water we drink or the fish we eat. However, even if you have a very good filtration system, that threat is not over. Just like the fish, most of the times we don't even know if we're consuming these chemicals, just like in the case of the crops we eat.
Much of the crops that are produced from the Indo-Ganges Brahmaputra basin, which is pretty much the North India, they are polluted by many of these pollutants, including arsenic. And just like the direct pathway of these pollutants to human body is drinking water, but also the crops, if they are irrigated by this polluted water, would be also picking up on these pollutants. Even they are imported out to a distant land and people are eating those crops, there is a fair chance that that crop source pollutants, arsenic, uranium, they would be eventually transferred to the human body. So it's an indirect method, but there's a possibility.
And like it doesn't really end there. So when you're trying to replace the drinking water in your city, you're trying to get it from a pure source, a water actually suitable for drinking. Because it has to be transported. What is it going to be transported through? 100 to 50-year-old pipes spanning across miles and miles of cities, below cities. And in that case, the possibility that these pipes may rupture or there may be a leakage is very, very high. And in that case, worse contaminants like sewage may seep into your drinking water. What are you going to do then?
This polluted water also brings in a whole new issue into the discussion.
Yeah.
Even if this water isn't being consumed, still polluted water is a breeding ground for innumerable bacteria and infections. Not even still polluted water. even just still water with a large surface area can act as a hub, a breeding ground for these bacteria to develop. If you don't believe me, just ask the people there. They know because they are living through this very thing. The saddest part with this entire issue is that it's not even the government's fault entirely. There have been initiatives, efforts, and then again, the water is still polluted.
So the government of India as well as the government of West Bengal, they have invested a huge amount of resources and money and manpower in trying to, provide clean drinking water to the people of this nation as well as the state. And from my experience, both as a scientist as well as somebody who has been overseeing these processes, I can tell you that in the terms of effort, I don't think there is any dearth of it. There is a huge amount of effort. Where and in many times it works actually. Where it fails is actually more the human impulse because of very complicated legal system and land laws and various employment laws and so on. Many times people who are operating these treatment facilities are not properly trained, and consequently, either intentionally or unintentionally, the treatment facilities don't work in the way they are planned to, they are engineered to. Consequently, people continue to still get bad or polluted water. We have run some experiment in the state level in about about 30 locations all across the state, and we have found that there are various levels of failure from somewhere between 20% to 100% in various of these treatment facilities. These are big treatment facilities. And when we try to audit what are the causes of these failures, the number one, the overwhelming factor that came out is not technology, not resource, but the human factor. So, if you have all the resources, like if you are flying a rocket, a very modern rocket, like a spaceship, with all the, gadgets, but you have a bad pilot, what's going to happen? It's going to crash. The same thing do happen in our instance too.